All right, Sam, what is WOTC OGL 1.1?
So, Wizards of the
That sounds like
Coast
an anime.
is owned by a little lesser known company. You might recognize them, called
Oh,
Hasbro.
I love Hasbro.
Hasbro, yeah.
Aren't
So,
they owned by CBS, which is another company owned by an internet conglomerate?
uh but that's not what we're talking about today. Today we're talking about Wizards of the Coast and how they are ending the tabletop board gaming fandom effectively.
The very small tabletop board
the
game
$2 billion industry is the tabletop board gaming industry. So Dungeons and Dragons, which is one of Wizards of the Coast two big properties. The other one being Magic the Gathering, which are very similar in terms of sort of genre. Now recently they alienated their Magic fans because they overprinted a bunch of cards and then charged I think it was $300 a pack for these reprints of cards that you couldn't even use. So they had already alienated a bunch of their fans there. And now recently they are revoking the open gaming license for D&D, which was written to exist in perpetuity, which means ongoing forever. They are revoking that, which is illegal. You just literally can't do that. And replacing it with Open Game License 1.1, which is a revision that allows, should Wizards of the Coast want, to claim any property that uses any of the IP for Dungeons and Dragons, so the monsters, the characters, the mythology, the game rules of Dungeons and Dragons.
Okay, but
And if you make more than $750,000, they are allowed to take 25% of your net revenue
sick.
after taxes and all that.
So bye-bye Critical Role.
So yeah, that includes really big. Now, Critical Role has stayed silent on this thus far, and this is a leak. To clarify, this is a leaked version of the open gaming license that we're talking about, but Wizards of the Coast has said a lot of things and has basically tried to defend a lot of these principles.
I don't feel like
implying that it is
way
pretty much real.
Actually, get away with this.
Because hang on, I'm not done. Okay. So, if what has allowed D&D to flourish is the massive third-party sphere. People who go on, Kickstarter and kickstart their own campaign books and write their own little rules and backstory and lore and all these little fun things that they want to do. People like Critical Role, D20, these live play shows on Spotify and YouTube that play the game using, D&D's rules.
Or made an entire animated series with characters from their D&D campaign.
Yeah, or do something like that. Basically, Wizards of the Coast can now just scoop that up. That's theirs now. And they are allowed to use and sub-license your work as if it is theirs in perpetuity. So they own it.
That's
again,
stupid.
I don't see any way
as well as
has any sort of actual legal grounding.
As well as they are able to, they take 25% of whatever your net revenue was, or your net gains. So even if you lost money on it,
they'll just take.
They still can take from you. They take 20% of the gains. So not just what you made.
Now, I feel like if this goes through, I'm pretty sure Patrick just fell asleep.
He's chilling.
No, I'm here.
He's good.
Okay, but that'd be essentially if Disney came out tomorrow.
Get ready.
And
you're doing what?
I gotta go though. So
we haven't talked about movies yet.
That's okay.
We're gonna talk about Ant-Man, Patrick.
He's gotta get his 9 hours.
Okay,
of sleep.
bye.
Bye, Patrick.
But now that'd be essentially if Disney came out tomorrow and was like, "Hey, any little kids that play pretend Star Wars and say that they're Darth Bagunkus and they pretend to lightsaber fight their friend, we can just say that Darth Bagunkus is our character and use him, and we get all the money from him."
Yeah, no, literally they can do that. That is what they've done.
Which is why I don't think this will go through. But pro tip.
No, it's not.
Here's how you get around it. For all of you. Okay, this is code red. This is emergency scenario.
I'll get into that in a minute.
All of your stuff. Here's what you do. Change all the characters' names to stuff that's really dumb and really vulgar, so that they can't ever actually use any of it. Just change it to this character's name is Diarrhea Boy, and they'll never ever buy it because why would
Just
you
name
want
all
that?
your characters like racial slurs.
Yeah, and then if they buy it, then they get in trouble for having a bunch of characters that are
But
named
so-
after racial slurs.
So, when we get to people getting around it, almost every major producer of third-party D&D content, because there are some bigger ones. Like, have you ever heard of the game Pathfinder?
I think so.
So people like that who make those kind of products, which is a spin-off of D&D, like it uses all their rules and stuff, have already begun to make their this isn't D&D. No. This is Wizards and Waverns. No. This is Warriors and Caves. This isn't Dungeons and Dragons.
Well, here's the other
they've
thing.
already started to make their own tabletop role-playing games that it just so happens to use a D20. What any old game could use one of
Well,
those.
here's the other thing. It's like, what does Dungeons and Dragons own and what do they not?
And
Like,
that's-
if you create a fantasy story with a goblin in it, they didn't create
yeah,
goblins.
they didn't invent goblins. They didn't invent ghouls
So,
and
to
skeletons.
what extent does that go under?
And that's part
Like,
of.
I guess there's an argument if you, like, use a spell that's only in D&D, they'll probably be able to reclaim that.
But, like-
but if you put skeletons or a dragon in something, they
but
didn't
like
make those.
Fireball is
Yeah.
a spell in D&D.
But those existed before
Yeah.
D&D.
Like create bonfire is a spell. Like there's stuff in D&D that is just kind of like universal principles of fantasy.
D&D is essentially, and it always has been, just a conglomerate of like every single
of generic
fantasy.
fantasy ideas.
So, but all of those ideas existed before.
What
What are they going to be able to claim as theirs, and what are they going to be able to claim as not theirs?
What D&D has been for basically since 5e, because it wasn't always like this, but more recent iterations
That
of
is a
D&D.
term I definitely know.
5th edition. That's the version that you've played.
Okay.
What D&D has been for the 5th edition is, I believe, 8 years old now. So what D&D has been for the last decade is essentially a fantasy novel generator.
Yeah.
Now, you might argue that it's not a very good one, or that it's not, if you're not a fan of D&D, whatever. But that's essentially what the game is. It's a fantasy novel generator that you do with your friends. So it's really hard to argue that you're owning elves, or you own dwarves and, goblins or whatever.
Because you just don't.
Because, in all honesty, like, Tolkien owns all that. He's made up like half that
Even
stuff.
before that,
Yeah.
somebody in like 532 AD
Was like, what if dude had
what
pointy
if
ears?
the skeleton left behind by my dead grandma
Came
to life
alive?
and tried to stab me? Like, what? I guess that guy owns the IP.
What if there's a little green guy who lives under the bridge and asks you
Who
for
stole
money?
my wallet? And then the other guy was like, "Oh, it was the green man."
It was the goblin boy.
The other guy went, "That tracks."
Okay. But yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see how this actually plays out. And what I think is going to happen, what I'm like 90% sure will eventually be the result of this, Wizards of the Coast just won't release that.
No.
They'll just decide, never mind. That we didn't do that.
Well,
Old
also,
one.
they don't want the legal challenging. Because what will end up happening is if they do...
Well, they're just hoping no one has
Well-
the money to legally challenge them.
But they'll get... But if... Okay, say they do it, and they try to go after Critical Role for their stuff,
Yeah.
right? Their television show is made by Amazon.
Well, here's the thing.
So if they come in and go, "Hey, Amazon, we want 20% of however the profit participation works on your animated series," Amazon's probably going to go, "Hold up a sec. How about no?"
Now, okay, the show changed a bunch of stuff. They removed all of the D&D IP. That's why it's called The Legend of Vox Machina.
But all the characters came from there.
No, they were created by the people who are playing the game. They're not from D&D.
But then that'll go again back to the extent of what does D&D technically own?
Exactly,
and what do they not?
but Critical Role also has a deal with Wizards of the Coast.
Yeah.
They already have a pre-existing agreement. They've published books with D&D and Critical Role like as a collab. Like they already have a deal. It's everyone else. It's the people who publish third-party campaign books. It's the people who publish third-party DMs guides. It's mainly publishers who are going to be worried about this.
But somebody will sue. But they'll just keep getting sued and sued and sued, and they'll just have to constantly fight over what is owned. And
Well,
what
the thing
isn't.
is they will so easily lose. Because the previous version of the Open Gaming License exists in perpetuity, meaning it is ongoing. Anyone who has published any work using D&D property before this new one goes under effect technically has a deal under the first Open Gaming License, which exists in perpetuity. It's the same as so let's say you bought Premiere Pro before it was like a subscription. Let's say you bought a perpetual license.
Yeah,
so
like
that means you own it forever. It's like $300, but you own it forever, right? That would be like them going, actually, that perpetual license, that's only for 5 years.
And you know, owe us all the money.
And now you have to pay us for a subscription, which, by the way, you know Filmora, the editing software?
Yep.
They just did that. Just recently. The same exact thing.
That's why I use Final Cut.
They charged a $200, like, whatever thing for perpetual license. And then they were like, oh, that's only for the 11. That's only for Filmora 11.
Yeah.
But in order to get Filmora 12,
and we're going
you have to pay.
Forcibly up to you to.
And you can't use it anymore unless you update. Yeah, so it's that sort of thing. But
so
it'll be interesting to see where this goes.
So the theme for today's episode is big corporation.
They don't like you, actually.
They don't like you.